If you look at incidents of crime, lest you might think, well, this place is so unsafe. You have, 400 over incidents of crime per day. These are data from Nation Master. This is not my data. In Nation Master, they compile the statistics based on 100,000 people, per 100,000 people. Malaysia's data is 550 incidents of crime per 100,000. South Africa is 4,143.7. The UK is about 6,498 per 100,000. The USA is 3,811. Singapore is 606. Hong Kong is 1,139.9 per 100,000. So relatively speaking, based on the comparable data that are put out there, this is not my data. I know that people will say, Idris, how come you cook those data? I don't cook those data. Those are data that they have reported separately. But that said, we still have 400 over incidents of crime per day. We still have a lot more to do. Hence, we needed your support to help us figure out how do we move forward in the year 2013, 14, and 15 to battle crime. It's a lot more to do. Let's have a quick look at the Malaysian economy, shifting gear into economic transformation. We looked at many countries that have successfully made it from middle income to high income. We found there were two prerequisites, two conditions that has to be met. The first one is to be focused. That means if you are Usain Bolt, if you want to win in the Olympics Games, you cannot say you also want to win in marathon, 200 meters, 400 meters, in swimming. You can't do that, because if you did that, you will not become champion. You'll probably become an average athlete or better than average, but not champion. So you need to focus. So we focus on 12 NKEAs, National Key Economic Areas. We introduced the notion of National Key Economic Areas because Malaysia needs to focus. We cannot be good in everything. We must focus. So the second thing that was needed was to introduce structural reforms in our economy that cuts across the entire sectors, that creates the conditions for competitiveness to flourish. Competitiveness is the key word. That means we have 651 strategic reform initiatives that were recommended by the National Economic Action Council, led by Tan Sri Amisham. These 51 SRI are those structural reforms that we need to implement to create the conditions for competitiveness to flourish in Malaysia. So when you have focus on the NKEAs, you have the strategic reform initiatives to then create the conditions for competitiveness. Then we can become Usain Bolt. Then we can win. I made a joke at a big event. I was invited to a dinner party of the 1 billion ringgit club organized by the Edge last week or 2 weeks ago. At that event, I said this to them. Ladies and gentlemen, by the year 2020, some of you will be in this room, some of you will not be in this room. My guess is for those that are still in the room, the 1 billion club, are those that focus on the external market. Those that focus only on Malaysian market, I believe they will not win it by the year 2020. Why do I say that? Is because Finland, Switzerland, Norway, a lot of the small countries, even including Singapore, if they were just focused on the domestic market, they would not move from middle income to high income. You cannot rely entirely on the domestic sector to do it. So the joke that I made was, I was fishing with my nephew in Perth. I love fishing. It was a huge beach. The two of us was fishing on one spot on the beach, and this Aussie was fishing on the other side. My nephew and I caught nothing, but the Aussie was catching a lot of fish. So my nephew, he was very small at the time, he walked with his rod and stood next to the Aussie and cast exactly where he was casting. There were just three of us on this huge beach. Of course, when the waves came, the whole line between the two got entangled like Maggie Mee. So then they pulled and, of course, spent half an hour untangling the lines. They didn't want to break the lines. So the Aussie said very quietly to him, "Son, this is a big beach, mate." The point here is that we in Malaysia cannot be vortex. into quarreling about this small economic market. We should think about how we can produce products and services that are competitive enough to win it in Germany, to win it in Europe, to win it in the USA, to win in China, in Japan, rather than quarreling about this domestic market. We should really think beyond. How do we create the conditions for competitiveness to flourish, for that to happen? So we're doing both. For those people that criticize the ETP for being focused only on NKRA, please remember we're also doing the 51 strategic reform initiatives. And these were some examples I want to give you. Example being, Competition Act has been introduced for the first time that will prevent anti-competitive agreements, bid rigging, price fixing, and all that. So anyone that finds any evidence of any of these activities must report to the tribunal. We have begun to liberalize certain sectors where we feel the Malaysians are ready. We begun to liberalize those so that we can then begin to compete. The more we compete, the more we can become better, then we can then begin to export our services abroad in some of these areas. KSN, together with Mampu and various agencies, have worked tirelessly to reduce bureaucracies. We have 761 business licenses that are required. Altogether, 52% of them have been eliminated. That means getting rid of. We don't need those business licenses because the more those licenses are there, the slower businesses was conducted. And so remaining 375 licenses only required. So that with those, then we're trying to automate them to reduce the time taken too. And another example is the approval for construction permits. There used to be 22 steps for this to go. This has been reduced to 10 steps, and the time taken has been crushed from 260 days to 100 days. We're also putting real-time counter rating for all police. If you go to the police departments in Selangor, when we piloted this, any complainant that turns up and make a police report can rank directly the officer that serviced the complainant there and then by pressing a button, 1 for poor, 4 for outstanding. And if you're shy to give the rating, you can go and do it via SMS. You can go home and send an SMS. We have a lot of very positive comments on this. The results so far for January up to March, or rather May this year, 2012, 49,000 people have given feedback. 87.1% of them are very satisfied with the police that are rendering the service at the counter. 12.6% of them are satisfied, 0.2% of them are unsatisfied, and 0.1% are very unsatisfied. So really very positive. We're rolling this out through the whole country, but not with the machine because that's costly, but we're using SMS. So you can go to all of the counters anywhere in Malaysia and you can actually send it via SMS. We've also begun to put it at some other places such as Selangor Immigration Center, Dewan Bandaraya KL, National Registration, and etc. First year of ETP results is very, very positive. 1 year implementation. The achievement based on the set KPI is 133%. So that's very good. You can see the scores. By the way, if you want to know more about the details of this score, come to Pemandu website. The very details are all there. Every single one of them, project by project, item by item, is inside the report. And they are, you can see the ones we have hit the targets. The one we have not hit the targets, they're there too. A lot of countries are struggling economically. In Europe, we see a lot of shrinking consumption, decline in manufacturing, and weak job numbers in US rather. Eurozone, you see the crisis looming there, fronting by Greece. But we continue in Malaysia to do well this year. Our growth for the first quarter of the GDP won 4.7% growth. Actually, Singapore in the first quarter, their growth is only 1.4%. You can see because they're very exposed externally in terms of trade. South Korea is growing at 2.8%, Taiwan 0.4%, Hong Kong 0.8%. And so, in fact, when you look at some of the things happening, Malaysia's Felder Global Ventures is the second largest IPO in the world just after Facebook. And so healthcare, IHS Healthcare is also very big, it's 2 billion. Consumer confidence is rising. If you like, it has risen for Malaysia by 4 points. Based on the Nielsen Global Consumption Confidence Index, we are number 4 after Indonesia, India, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, and Malaysia. So that's very good. World Economic Forum show an increase from ranking number 26 to number 21 last year. The World Bank Ease of Doing Business has risen from number 23 to number 18. Public Perception Survey conducted by the Institute Integrity Malaysia, they show that the Malaysian public, based on GTP, the Malaysian public's assessment of GTP 1 is 7.2 out of 10. So that's really quite good, actually, in my view. Frost & Sullivan did an independent survey. Frost & Sullivan sample is much smaller than the Institute Integrity, but it came with the same similar score, 7.4 out of 10. We have an international panel that review our work. The guy who used to do my job, Sir Michael Barber, in Tony Blair's administration, is on our panel. Chairman Kwak, who does my job in South Korea, is on the panel, and few other people from IMF and also ex-World Bank, they're on the panel. So they were very positive. This was some of the comments that they gave, the summary slide, after they have had 2 days of rigorous discussion, dialogue with us. They said, very innovative, great start, exciting, high impact, speedy, transformational process is gathering global recognition. So they said, keep it going. We had the Langkawi International Forum. All the African leaders were here, and they were very impressed with the work, so they sent altogether a lot of delegates from 14 countries to learn from our experience here. We spent 4 days explaining and sharing with them our work, and some of them are out there trying to implement some of those things. In fact, I give you some record-breaking statistics. The first one is about crime. In fact, for the last 2 years, these are the numbers, is the highest crime reduction over the last 4 years. Altogether was the last 2 years. Record rural completion, 1,700. The best UPSR result in 4 years. Record number of integrity pacts. We've never signed so many integrity pacts in our history. 132,000. That means integrity pacts means people agreeing not to bribe and not to receive bribe. If they lie, that's their problem. Record passengers carried over the last 2 years. We have 2.8 million passengers that were carried on urban public transport. That was a record for us. And we also have, because our GNI and our GDP continue to grow, it didn't contract. So our record GNI was 859.1 billion last year. We also had record GDP. We have the highest IPO value in history. The Felder Global was the highest in history. Record private consumption. That's the highest private consumption that we've had. Highest private investment in 10 years. Highest private investment in 10 years was last year. Highest FDI, I think this is in 5 years. I stand corrected on this chart. Highest FDI in 5 years is 36.6 billion. The top 3 years in total trade, that means export and import added together, we achieved 1.47 trillion. By the way, these are rebased numbers, the latest rebased numbers. Even without rebased, we still have those records, by the way. That means only twice in our history did we achieve similar numbers, 1.3 trillion in previous years. Government revenue was also a record. So as a result of record GDP, record GNI, we have achieved record government revenue. And that's good for our country. The more the government revenue increases, the more money we can then give to the public. This 185.4 billion ringgit of revenue, government revenue, was then, we can then spend more on the rakyat. Let me talk now about GTP2 going forward. What are we going to do? I will not tell you all the details, because the details, I want you to go to the booth and the plenary sessions behind to get more of the details. Let's give you a bit of a sneak preview. We had 6 weeks of lab, 240 hours, 474 members from the relevant government agencies as well as private sector involvement. 18 NGOs and private sector were involved in this work. 168 syndication sessions altogether. We produced 4,000 pages of detailed report, 126 initiatives, 116 proposed KPIs. The key conclusions were the following. The first one was we confirm that GTP1, the initiatives, should continue. There's a lot of comments from public that when we build roads, we don't have enough money for maintenance. So the view today is that when we build those rural roads, we should put some money for maintaining those roads. So we are doing that, continuing that. We also want to expand some of the existing GTP1 successes. For example, as you saw, there's a lot more low-income households that we need to reach out to because we could not tackle them in the first 3 years. We need to continue that. There's a lot more we need to do in education. We need to continue some of those. And then the third one was new things that were coming out. For example, there was this notion of how do we put forward a new idea of the 21st century village. How does a village in the 21st century look like? What can we do with the villages today to move there? And so that is breaking new grounds. We looked around in all other countries in the world where that has been done, and we learned from some of those lessons. We're going to try some of that, the 21st century village. And for example, the city buses, we don't have it in KL, but we intend to do it. Crime. We're concerned about crime. We need to keep on looking at the program to reduce some of the activities. Panic button mobile application, whitening black spots. That means areas where we feel that there are a lot of opportunities for cleaning up the area, whitening it rather than black. For example, a lot of empty houses. What do we do with those empty houses? Abandoned homes. What do we do with those? Because those are opportunities for criminals to locate themselves and then launch into their activities. A lot of activities on omnipresence, how we will deploy a lot more of our police into the hotspot areas so that we can improve the safety perception from currently at 45 to 65 whilst we're reducing the crime. Crime is another issue. A lot of public comment was saying, Idris, it's good that you do an assessment when we file the report, but we want to know what are you doing with the individual case when I made the report. So we are now intending to launch into what is called System Semakan Online, just like DHL. So you have a report number, you can key in your report number so that you can then be appraised online. What is the police doing with your case? So that's when this is going live, that is what we were doing, so that the individuals can access directly what are they doing with it. Of course, this is very frightening if you are a police officer. But the point was we're trying very hard to make sure that we are transparent to the public about what we're doing with it. So you can, once you key it in, and then you can then progress. I think in the booth there, you can see the prototype, if I'm not mistaken, on what we're intending to do with this. Another example on corruption in NKRA. This is an important one. The Auditor General produces a report annually, and there are a lot of issues that are inside there. We need to make sure that we table in set action committees to implement those very earnestly, to make sure that there's online dashboard for every activity inside the report. And all of the agencies that are not closing the loop need to come to KSN and the Prime Minister for what is called the Putrajaya Inquisition. That means if you don't close the activities inside the MSCC report, you need to answer why you're not closing it and no, you're not addressing the issue. We're putting this very squarely as an activity, robust activity for monitoring and accountability. Rural development. We want to continue our activities to provide and improve rural infrastructure so that 95% of all people living in Sabah and Sarawak will have access to rural basic infrastructure within 5 kilometers of their homes. By the year 2015, 99% in Peninsular Malaysia, and so within 5-kilometer radius. These are the 21st century village. We will have a business challenge. We're getting all the young people who want to participate in this competition, the first trial. So if they win this, they'll be given some award to begin to become entrepreneurs, in the 21st century village. So come to the booth to hear more details about this. Urban public transport, we're going to revamp the taxis. We did not touch the taxi in GTP 1, but we're touching the taxis in GTP 2. We'll launch a new taxi business model, centralized, taxi service systems. You can see on the booth there how you can make the calls using smartphone, how you can track the taxi driver, how far is he coming to you or not coming to you online. And so you can see the booth there. And so we intend to have city buses that run within the central business district. That means between malls and malls. So that means you can hop within 5 minutes, you can get to the next bus. They can jump to another without needing to go on taxis within the cities. And so pretty soon, if you all agree with us, it's a good idea, we'll go and implement this. On the education, as you know, we have the school improvement program. We're now extending this to the districts, getting the district involved with the school, getting also the state heavily involved in the transformation program. It's a huge activity that is going on. In fact, on some of the details here, we were concerned about English language. So we got 7,000 teachers who are teaching English to sit for the Cambridge English test. And so we know who failed and who passed. The one who failed, we will pull them out for remedial classes on English. And the one who passed, they're okay. So you cannot have a more general thing about this. There are about 70,000 teachers that teach English. We also want the others to go through this program. So the first in the lab, during the lab, 7,000 of them sat for the test. So we will now take out those that have failed. We'll give them the training required. New career for teachers. We're boosting 420,000 the packages, opportunities for teachers. We have a single evaluation instrument focusing on teaching and also learning rather than the many, many ones that exist today. Faster progression for expert teachers so that they don't leave the system. We're also doing a lot more incentives to encourage bright young people who will volunteer to become teachers. So this idea of Teach for Malaysia is a great idea. More details at the booth, and I don't want to go through all the details, giving a sneak preview so that you go there. Please give us your feedback. You can use your smartphone and just stick it there, and then you can give your feedback using the machine. If you have a smartphone, you can use the technology to do the assessment directly, and they will tell you how to do it. If you don't have a smartphone, you can go there and put it directly into the computers and iPad. There are people out there that will help you to key in this data so that we can electronically find out the details. Give us your feedback, either written or verbal. Go to the booth at the back. You can also go to the breakout sessions on the 4th floor, starting in 11:15. There is a lot of details on every specific of the NKRA, so that you can engage with them. We need your feedback. If you have better ideas, very good ideas that we have not covered and captured, please give us your ideas. We'd like to incorporate them in our work going forward, because we're doing this for Malaysia. If you think some of our ideas are no good, tell us they are no good and why they are no good, so that maybe we will change our minds as regards the information that you grant to us. And so we do really need your feedback. This session here is meant for you. This is for me giving you our feedback about what has happened in the past. But looking forward, we really need your feedback, because after we do this, we now going to incorporate them inside the program going forward in the GTP2. And that will cover the year 2013, 2014, and 2015, the 3-year program. We will continue our program of doing an annual report, which is validated by external PricewaterhouseCoopers that do our auditing for the work. We will produce it annually, a report, so the public will know about it. So ladies and gentlemen, I am of the view that there are many, many good things happening in our country. I think, if you like, the roses are blooming. It was someone that made a quote, and the quote was, "It's tragic when we stop living." That means we only worry about the magical rose garden in the horizon. That's unreal. It's a magical rose garden in the horizon. But actually, we should dream about the real rose garden in the horizon, because actually outside our windows, just outside the windows, the roses are blooming. You can see small things happening in Malaysia. The roses are blooming outside our windows. I want to conclude by saying, ladies and gentlemen, I know we have a lot of things to complain about this country. I have lived my life a lot overseas. I lived in Sri Lanka for 3 years, 4 years in Holland. I lived 4 years in London. I can tell you, they moan and groan about many things too, just like us. So we're not alone. This idea of moaning and groaning is a normal human phenomenon. But I urge everyone to remember Helen Keller this quote: keep your face to the sunshine and you will never see shadows. Thank you.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was Former Senator Datuk Seri Idris Jala on the Government Transformation Program, the roadmap.